enslavementchanneling.com. Now, on today's show, I'm about to be joined by my guest, Lynn Williams. Now, Lynn has been an empath since she was a child and has used her gifts to build several businesses from scratch as she worked in the corporate world for over 25 years. Now, after her profound spiritual awakening by ET visitation in 2010, whereby all of her other psychic gifts of feeling, seeing, and hearing into the other realms were opened, Lynn then decided to dedicate her life work to assisting others in their spiritual awakening, emotional healing, and shadow work, teaching others how to remove etheric interferences from their lives. Now, she has spent thousands of hours studying and or experiencing a multitude of subjects, including metaphysical, spiritual ascension, UFO, and ET-related topics. Lynn Williams, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, Kevin, for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, now I believe this is your first time on video, is that right?
It is, yes.
Okay. Well, first of all, we'll get into the reasons why that is in just a moment, right?
Right.
But first of all, thank you for coming on via video. Obviously, now was the time for you to do this.
It was, and it corresponded with some energies, waves of energies that we've been receiving recently, and things are really changing for the better. And those of us that are kind of considered first wavers, we can feel it very deeply. And you know, when I first started doing this work in 2015, there was not that level of reception, and there was a lot more interference. And the good news is that is starting to fade away. The interference of of people like me being monitored or harassed and that sort of thing, because I've gotten a lot of harassment behind the scenes. That's starting to fade away. That's starting to break apart.
Yes, absolutely it is. And I've never really had much interference or problems like that in my shows. Normally, it's always been something technical. It has happened in the past, but nothing, to the scale that some people out there, no names mentioned, Mrs. Cassidy, that have that type of issue.
Right.
But here on the Moore Show, or the Kevin Moore Show, we don't. So, if you were to sum up your work very briefly, just so that at the beginning of part of this, talk, we can know at the beginning what it is that you do and what you stand for.
Sure. Well, it corresponded. My work has changed. So just briefly, I won't get into a lot of background right now, but I was awake as a child, and I was kind of shut down because my parents didn't believe some of the things I saw. And so I shut myself down, as many young children do. And I reawoke in 2010, so 10 years ago. And I literally had an ET experience that kind of woke me up. I've talked about that on other shows. And after that happened, I left my corporate career, or I started dwindling that down, and then going down the rabbit holes of trying to figure out, what had happened to me. And in the course of that, I discovered my gifts were opening. And I have all my gifts open. I'm claircognizant, that's my first gift, clairaudient, clairsentient, deeply empathic. All of this started to really open up in a big way. So I knew my work needed to change, because I was being called to help humanity, like so many of us who awaken are. And so I have a background in coaching. And so I started to help people. They just seemed to gravitate to me. And I developed a coaching practice out of that. And I help people with a myriad of spiritual and life coaching needs. So when I say spiritual, things like I'm awakening, what's going on? I'm so confused, no one I can talk to, or what's my spiritual mission? What did I come here to do? So that's kind of how I got into this work. And so what I stand for, my overriding umbrella of my work, is to make each of the people that come to me, and as I educate people on these videos that I do, the various interviews, make them or help them be sovereign, empowered, and free. Because that is really what this awakening time is all about. We are to rise back up into who we really are as these beautiful creator beings. We've been dumbed down for thousands of years. And that's what this whole, whether you want to call it ascension, consciousness raising, is really all about. It's to lift us back up through DNA connection, left brain, right brain connection, to get us back up to who we really were as creator beings, to get our memories to come back, from different lifetimes that we've lived, so that we can actually have an experience in this beautiful organic realm the way it was meant to have. Now, some people say that we're not going to have that organic realm. There's going to be a splitting, right? A splitting of worlds. And those of us that are raising our consciousness are going to sort of vibrate out of the transhumanism, Mad Max world that they're sort of creating right now, or trying to create. And we're going to be going into a shift into a different reality, which is really, it's not like going to a new planet, in my opinion. It's phasing out of range of kind of the negative stuff. Now, everybody has a choice. Every soul has a choice as to what we're going to do. And my choice, and people that come to me, our choice is to shift out of phase, to kind of move out of this world. But as we leave it, try to help as many people as we can, awaken as many as we can to take us with us, with us. But unfortunately, not, I believe, everybody is choosing that. And that is their free will choice. They may want to live in that transhumanism world for a while. It's not going to be
so. Absolutely, no. And I don't want to. I think you're almost finished there, aren't you?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, I didn't want to interrupt you there, but that splitting off again. Why have you stayed here then? Why are you here where it seems to be a little bit more? And also, if you are here where it seems to be a bit more difficult, what are you? Where could you have gone?
Okay, good questions. So I'm a volunteer. My soul, or my presence, Lynn, volunteered to be here during this time to help. And I've known that since I was a very small child. And in fact, when I was 4 years old, I remember lying on the grass in Trenton, New Jersey, staring up at the clouds. And back then they were beautiful, big, puffy clouds, not the chemtrails. and I got a download, and it was, you create your reality. You can shift things. So when I was born here, I wasn't like a lot of the star children coming in today where they know from day one why they're here. For me, I was a first waver. I'm older. So I kind of woke up in little blips. And so that was one first blip. And then a second one that happened when my mother asked me and my cousin, we were about 8 years old, what are you going to be when you grow up? And my cousin had said, oh, I'm going to grow up and be a mommy. And my words just tumbled out, I'm here to save the world. Now, I don't think I ever thought I was going to do that single-handedly. And my God, if I thought I had to, that would have been way too daunting for me. But I started to just have these things happen. And then I started to realize that, my favorite TV shows were, what was that show back in the 60s? Twilight Zone. That was my favorite show at 4 and 5 years old. And my mom couldn't figure out, why do you like this show? It's so weird. But it wasn't. To me, there was so much encoded messaging as to this is the world we're living in. So, that kind of moved me into, over time, particularly after I woke up, more and more pieces of the puzzle came back together. And now I have remembered a lot of my past lives. And I have been also hypnotically regressed. I know you interviewed Dolores Cannon and her daughter a while back. I didn't go as deep. The fellow that regressed me wasn't trained in QHHT, but I was put under hypnosis 3 times, and I did see past lives. I was a shaman in Lemuria. In one of the lives, I was a caveman wisdom keeper. In another life, where I was sort of left back at the cave, and I was writing these hieroglyphs or languaging on the walls, and the village would come back after they went hunting, and they would feed me and take care of me. And then in the third lifetime, I was more like a Nostradamus type. I was actually a guy with a white beard, and I had been kept in a turret almost my whole life so that I could read to the royal families. They would come to me for psychic readings. So those were the 3 lives that popped up, and they've kind of merged with what I'm here to do. I do want to say something about that, because people ask, well, shouldn't we remember all of our lives? And I actually believe we're meant to remember the ones that we really need for this particular mission that we're on, or this particular lifetime. So in my case, I do a lot of psychic stuff, and people do come to me for readings, and I am a shaman in a natural sense, in an organic sense. So I'm noticing the bleed through from those past lives are sort of showing up in this life.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that as well. Now, obviously, things that you've mentioned there do sound a bit like Dolores Cannon's teachings, in the sense of the new earth, the splitting off. So let's get into that question I asked you, in the sense that, if there is a splitting off, where have you stayed? Do you know what I mean? Why are you, where could you have gone to? What are some people going to? Is this the split? Is this the heaven on earth? Is the split just realizing that we can have heaven on earth just by improving ourselves? We need nothing beyond that.
Okay, that's a lot of questions. So I'll try to. So I volunteered from the ninth dimension. I'm a higher dimensional being. So the way I understand it is you have higher dimensional beings that chose. We got the bugle call, and we may have been here before, which in my case I had been, but I wasn't here in the reincarnation trap. Okay, so I had gotten out somewhere along the line. And then there are those beings that may have come from Sirius or Arcturus, and they're coming directly from there and reincarnating here, or not reincarnating, but taking on a body here. And then there are the ones that have more earthbound souls that have been trapped here. And they're really the ones we've been trying to help awaken for the most part, because we're already awake. Once we wake up, we get who we are. We're trying to help other people see that as well. And we're doing that in a myriad of different ways. Everybody's got a different mission of why they're here. We all play these beautiful different notes in the orchestra. Now, let me answer some of your other questions with that, because I'm trying to remember them all. So what else were you asking about that?
Yeah, obviously, when we talk about that, there are
Oh, the splitting. I'm sorry. The splitting in the
splitting,
right.
yes.
Okay. So when we talk about the splitting, this is the way I've come, and I can only go with my internal knowing. Okay. I don't have the final answer. I don't think anyone does, but I think that I sort of know what I know. I don't learn this stuff. I mean, I do research and I watch what other people are doing, but then I always run it through my internal filter. Does that feel resonant for me? So what originally I think, particularly around when I woke up 2012, it was the idea that there was going to be a new earth and there was going to be an old earth, very much like Dolores Cannon talked about. And it made, I think, with the linear mind, think of a splitting, like, there's going to be an overlay earth that's going to pop out, and that's where some of us are going to go. I guess I look at it more this way, again, that as we raise our consciousness, we sort of phase into the next area. And we can phase into multiple areas. We're not all going to the same place. So even when we talk about a new earth, it's not like we all show up, those of us that chose that. There's different tiny little differences to all of that. And in fact, we're doing that right now. So I and many of the beautiful clients that are now my friends, what we've been able to do is things like change weather, move weather. We can call in a thunderstorm. We can move it away. We can already do those sorts of things. When I live in my house and I'm doing my work, I'm more in a fourth and fifth dimensional frequency. But when I have to go to Walmart and get bird seed for my birds, I'm pulled back down into the third. So when they say we're walking between worlds, those of us that are awake, we are already doing it. And you can see, we're not caught up in a lot of those horrible tragedies that are happening around the world. Lynn Williams isn't in the Bahamas. Why was I not there? Why was someone else there? So I think, again, we are already starting to control our reality day to day, and we're all doing it uniquely for each of us. So there is not an either or. That's the linear mind. Are we either going to be in the old world or the new world? No, imagine all the gray in between, all the different places people can be. And it will be dependent on where their consciousness is in any
Of
given
course.
moment.
Of course, absolutely, and thank you for explaining it like that. That's beautiful. Thank you. And obviously, I would say you've had a past life in this life as well. You worked on Wall Street. You had a more of a mainstream job, and when the economic collapse happened, I want to say around 2008.
Mm-hmm.
That you went into a deep depression,
Mm-hmm.
like many other people did. But it was also the catalyst for your new life that you're living now. So, obviously, what a transformation you've been through, and you've kind of walked the path of, going into that spiritual side. But so, why did you go down that road? That's what I'm asking, I guess.
Well, that had to do with that was out of my control. And I always like to joke my alarm clock went off. So, I had a role when I came in, and then I was asleep for a lot of years. And while I didn't specifically work on Wall Street, I recruited Wall Street executives in my own company. And, I made a lot of money at the time. And I didn't realize, Wall Street was corrupt. I didn't, I wasn't at that level. I wasn't in the insider level. I was just thinking, hey, I'm a really good recruiter. I'm getting them really good talent. So when 2008 hit, I actually got a call from a former client, and he said the whole thing is going to crash. And I said, what are you talking about? And he started talking about mortgage-backed securities and derivatives, things that I didn't understand from a technical standpoint because I didn't need to. But he just said it's going to start crashing. And indeed it did. And so at that point, that prompted my deep night of the soul. And I started questioning, is this the career I can be in the rest of my life? I had no idea that they were doing this to humanity. It was very upsetting to me. And so I started to question, what can I do? At that point, I was 48 years old. And basically, this is all I knew was recruiting. I was really good at it. And I built my career to a point where it was going to sustain me the rest of my life. And now because I'm so integral, I just started tearing it apart, saying, okay, I can't do this. What next? And in the next successive years, I sort of wound down my company, and I just took a little time off, and I just tried to contemplate. But again, I was still very left brain. I was still not awake. And then in 2010, that is when I had ETs literally show up in my bedroom. When I call them ETs, I never saw them. They were the higher dimensional beings that are my homies from where I came. And they don't have a physical form, but they do have sound waves. And they did come in. It's kind of a longer story. I don't know if you want me to get into that level of detail because it is kind of a long story. But I was affiliated with 2 other women that were having similar experiences, and so we would Skype together. And then through these, the tones would start over the Skype line. They put me in and the other 2 women in sort of a light trance. And then the third time they came over, they literally knocked me out and worked on me. And when I woke, I passed out. When I awoke, all my gifts were open. And I was testing things like my cat was sick. And the next day I just laid my hands on him and he started getting better. And I could feel this enormous heat coming out of my hands. Now, I wasn't trained in Reiki or any of that. In fact, the reason I went to get Reiki 1 and 2 is because I didn't think anybody would believe that I could heal with my hands. So I thought I needed a credential, right? Miss Left Brain, it's like, well, I need a credential for this. And that's how all of the gifts opened. They just started coming. I started seeing things, not so positive things like reptilians and dark shadows and shadow men in my home. So my clairvoyance was opening. I started hearing voices. I had a little girl that would wake me up in the morning. Lynn, she was about 5 or 6, wake up. And I'm kind of a light sleeper. So I'd be lying in bed in that sort of in between, and I knew I wasn't making this up. And she would do it for weeks. And I realized these were all just activations to get me used to the idea that I could do these things. And they have not lasted completely because for our spiritual mission, we don't need it all open. So for example, if I was going to be a medium, I would need to see dead people, right? So I could give readings and tell people about their relatives and past lives. But since I'm a coach, my first 2 gifts are clear knowing. So I get downloads in my sessions with clients, and clear feeling. So I get tingles and chills coming up the spine. And so that's the way it is for all of us. So we don't have to open all of our gifts at once, but they are open, and they will open from time to time.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for what you're sharing right now as well. And I know obviously, you've talked about this in previous interviews. I might actually link up the Leak Project interview that you did back a few years ago right now. So if people want to know a bit more about your journey, they can just click the links below in the description below. Now also, your website, there's no website, but on the screen has been coming up your Facebook page, your links, ways to contact you. One of them is another website, a course website, a university website, which does metaphysical courses, and you've got a page on there which you could be contacted with as well. But your email address has been coming up on the screen, and your email address is, Lynn?
lwilliams2002@verizon.net. And I am in the process of building my own website. Part of the issue has been, given the work I do, I've been highly targeted. And so I've kind of wanted to stay under the radar, which is why this is the first time I'm on camera. Facebook, they can always Facebook message me there. If you put my Facebook address, it's Facebook, lynn.williams.129. they hid 300 of my clients last year. So I never got the messages, and they're still doing that. So email becomes the first way, and then they can find more information. I am hosted over at Rise Multiversity with other, teachers that have been at Rise Multiversity. So that has been the place that you could kind of put a face with a name up until now. And I have taught courses there, as well as done some interviews with Rise Multiversity. If you Google my name and implants, those should pop up.
Okay, wonderful. Now, they are all in the description of this video, and we'll put them in the description of the podcast as well on our SoundCloud pages. Okay, this is fascinating stuff. It's about to get even more fascinating than it is right now.
It's about to get a little weird, right?
Yeah, right. Well, there's a lot to your work, and obviously we've only got a finite amount of time here right now.
Right.
And I'll probably be getting you back on, to be quite honest with you, because we're trying to compact so much in here right now. And I appreciate you trying to do that with your answers that you're giving as well. So, okay, I suppose one of the things that you're known for as well is etherical implants. I mean, implants that if the surgeons were to look for them, they would not be found.
Exactly.
Right?
Correct. Yes.
So you had one of these implants. That's how it started for you. What was this implant doing to you?
Well, I actually had quite a number. So I had, I had them in the head. I had a lot in the throat. And it was interesting, when I got them out of the throat, my voice went up an entire octave. And I've been told I speak languages of light. I've got encodings in my speaking voice. So you don't have to say the funny words to speak language of light. You can just have a tonality in your voice. And so I've been told that by a number of psychics. I find that hard to believe, but people have given me feedback that they get activated when I speak with them. And so I think the implants were trying to lock that down so that the tonality was completely different. I had them in shoulder. I had them in my womb area, a lot in the womb area. The womb area, particularly for women, obviously because actually I shouldn't say that, because men have had wombs in my sessions, but for the most part, we carry the wombs. Those are portals, not only for souls to come in, right? That's how the soul comes into an embryo. A woman's womb is her portal. But it also can be a place that can be infested with these etheric entities and implants. And so I had them all over. Well, so let me kind of give you the overview of how we're all affected by them. It wasn't just me, we're all affected by them. So they can come in. So first of all, when I say implant, I'd like to refer to all of them as parasites. Because for all intents and purposes, that's what they are. They're parasiting our energy, just like a mosquito or a tick would parasite your blood in order to live. They need our energy to survive. Now, when I talk about etheric implants, the implant part is more non-sentient things, devices, objects, non-sentient mechanical creatures, things like that. Or even AI, although AI is in a class by itself because it is both sentient and non-sentient at the same time. And then you've got entities, and entities would be more sentient. So a reptilian, a gray alien, an insectoid being, a dark jinn or demon. Those would be more when we talk about entity attachments. So we all have these, and many of us carry them in from other lifetimes. So for example, if you were a dark warlock in another lifetime and you were conjuring up these dark entities, those entities can actually attach and follow you lifetime to lifetime. So you could have brought them with you. Many of the starseeds and the lightworkers that volunteered, they get tagged, like myself, we get tagged the minute we come here. We are tagged. They know who we are. They have technologies that they know what all of our soul signatures are and what we're going to do, which is one of the reasons they target so many of these people and try to keep us asleep, because if we ever wake up and get on our mission, we become the threat. So we can get them in the womb. We can get them the minute we're born. And then we accumulate them over the course of our lives through various traumas, abuses that happen to us. Because the entities and implants feed on the lower emotions. So anything that happens to you that puts you into fear, depression, sadness, rage, all of that is going to attract them, because that's their bread and butter. That's their meal of choice. And so the more we can raise our vibration, the more we do lift out of range. But that doesn't solve the idea that you still had the ones that were already in you. And so you got to get those out. And then it's easier to lift up your vibration and kind of batten down the hatches, so to speak, with that and other tools, and keep more of them out. But everybody's got them to some degree. Now, somebody might say, well, gosh, Lynn, I don't feel like I'm very messed with. Most people don't even know that they're messed with these things because they can take over your physical health. So a lot of the diseases or the pains and the aches that people are associating with, a 3D malady are caused or seeded by these implants and entities. Let's just call them parasites for ease of discussion. They can also take over your thoughts, or they can insert their own thoughts. So if you get this weird thought out of left field, that could be them. The same with your emotions. So I don't know if you've ever been in a situation where, or if maybe in the audience, they've been in a situation where they started getting angry and they're getting so worked up and they can't seem to stop it. And it's almost like they're observing themselves getting angry and they're like, gosh, why am I getting so upset? But they can't shut it off. That would be an entity or an implant that came in and is sort of running the show in that moment. So they can come and go. They can also lay kind of dormant within us and only act up when they want to.
Okay, so we're not just born with them. They can obviously, we can attract that throughout our life as well.
Yes.
What makes a person attract such things?
Good question. Well, okay, so if you are a threat to the system, that's the number one way that they're going to try to come in and lock you down, right? So if you're a volunteer who has a big mission, whatever that is, maybe you're working in the astral at night as an astral warrior, or maybe you're like Lynn Williams, you're doing transformational coaching for people and helping them shift from here to there. Maybe you've got a big radio show. You mentioned a name a little earlier. So some of these radio shows that may be trying to expose the agenda, those people are targeted, or the big conferences that people go to. I don't go to conferences anymore. I've gone to one and I got messed with and I brought stuff home. And I don't want to bash all conferences, but it's just the reality of something that can happen if you're exposing information.
And sometimes, some people at those conferences probably thought it's directed energy weapons. And actually, it's not anything like that at all. It's something more of what you're talking about. But they feel as though it's a directed energy weapon at them. But actually, it's something else. I
mean, it could be military technologies as well, for sure. And it could be, I suppose, directed energy. But it also could be you've got a black sorcerer in your midst, and he knows how to mess with your energy.
And what would a black sorcerer do?
Well, I'll tell you a story that came to me briefly, and I won't mention any names, of course, but there was a certain person who was at a conference, and this person carries a lot of light and has a big mission here for what they're doing. And they were one of the speakers, and there was another speaker that was there that was taken over, and many of these speakers get taken over by the entities. So, the entities are in us, but it's a matter of to what degree they're running us. Everything's on a spectrum. Right? So if you're not being run that much, or if you're not doing anything that's a threat to the system, and I'll get into other ways that they'll target you, then you may be kind of left alone. Yeah, they're still messing with you. You still might pick fights with your husband and wonder, why are we fighting? Or you may still wake up with deep depression, even though you got plenty of sleep and there's no reason for you to be depressed. But if you're a conference head, now you've got a reason. Now they have a reason. And the military works with the etheric entities as well. They know all about them. So both of those things can be targeted amongst those individuals. So getting back to this story, so this person walked through the room with a speaker who had been taken over. And literally that speaker sent this person a barb, an attack. And for the next several hours, that person had diarrhea, really bad diarrhea. And she felt it coming in her back. So these are the types of things that can go on. And, again, I don't want to put people in fear because it's not every conference, but some of them are more targeted than others.
Okay, thank you for sharing what you've just shared there. Now, you talk about, obviously we just mentioned the black magic person that we're not going to name names, but you've also, obviously we're then talking about the implants. Who's behind all this? What force is behind this? And why does this force not want us to wake up?
Okay, so that gets into, the enslavement or the matrix system that is wrapped around this realm. So I believe this started out as a beautiful organic realm, kingdom, and I call it a realm, where souls could come, and we had our memories, we had our connected DNA. I also believe they put the split in our brains to make it more left and right, and we had a more holistic brain back then. And we got invaded. This place got invaded, and it got invaded by. So I don't believe we were created. People talk about the Anunnaki and that sort of thing. I don't believe we were created. I think we were created by God, by Source Creator. But I do believe that this place somewhere along the line got invaded. And yes, there were geneticists there that they did mess with us in the human form. So, and again, just so you know, I'm not an expert in how we got locked down. There are other people that talk about it. And the more I've done research, frankly, the more I'm confused, because, even people like Zachariah Sitchin are starting to be called out as maybe he didn't tell the whole truth and maybe he was part of the Freemasons. I mean, I don't know. But the fact of the matter is, because I'm more boots on the ground working with the people, but this place got locked down. And because it was invaded by various types of parasites, various species of parasites, and again, let's say the Anunnaki are real, or let's say, the reptilians, the greys, the mantis or insectoid beings, the dark demons, anything like that has to feed on us. And because we're started out as these amazing, and where we're moving back to, these amazing entities filled with God light, when we're running the way we should be, we are a huge food source for them. Plus, they want to embody us. They can't do what we do as co-creators. They can't, we can manifest when we're fully embodied, we can manifest. They can't do that. They're parasites, just like, a tick is no match for a human, right? And so they're trying to devise all these ways to dumb us down so they can take the body over, and inserting implants and entities allows them to do that. It locks us down. It dumbs us down even more. And then through various means, this is why they push alcohol and drugs, cannabis now, but it's going to be government cannabis. It's going to be completely, you have to get it through your dispensary. You're not necessarily going to be able to grow your own for much longer, because they want, or tobacco, it's all to lock us down and to dumb us down, because then they are happy that their buddies came in, these dark entities, and are locking humanity down further. Then we can be controlled by the Rothschilds, and which are run by entities or hybrids themselves or shape-shifting reptilians, whatever they are. So do you see how it kind of goes up the phase? And we are their cattle, we are their sheep, that, we're just livestock to them. So if they can dumb us down and dim our light so we don't even know who we are, then they can fully take us over. And with the transhumanism agenda, get us to pop our consciousness out of this body, out of this vessel. Maybe they want to take over it, and put ourselves into a robot to live for eternity, which is basically going to be a soul prison.
Were they always like this dark energy? Did it always have this agenda? Or what was this dark? Was the dark energy created by the creation of the multiverse, the universe? In a sense, it was just a natural byproduct of the creation of such a thing.
I can't say for sure. It would be conjecture. I feel that. And what I've heard is behind whether it's the Anunnaki or any of these creatures, right? Because you kind of go up the chain, everything came from source. Everything, good or bad, came from source.
Yes, it's having an experience for source, isn't it? Isn't this a delicious way of taking something back to the all that is?
Exactly. And we as humans would say, well, why would source want to create something so horrible? But when you get to the higher levels, it isn't. That's the linear 3D mind that says good or bad, and when you get to the higher realms, you don't have that level of judgment. You don't have that linear mind. So it's all just an experience. Now, I'm not arguing for that. I'm not saying it's right. It's a horrible, horrible thing. But the bottom line is, behind that, I've understood that there was AI technology, and that AI technology wasn't always necessarily bad, and even now isn't always bad. In other words, there's AI technology out there that is not necessarily wanting to destroy and everything that it comes in contact with. But we apparently have some AI around us, or have had AI around us, that it's kind of devouring its own tail. It's getting so out of control and negative, it's actually destroying everything. And so, again, I can't speak as an expert. I'm just parroting some of the things I've intuited and some of the things I've read. But the point is, this has definitely been a lockdown realm, however it got originally locked down. And it wasn't supposed to be that way. It doesn't mean that we as souls couldn't come and have a sad experience, right? We're embodying all the emotions. So we could be sad, or it doesn't mean we came down here and we're going to be happy or go lucky all the time. But we weren't supposed to have all this interference where, everything we do gets messed with, or we have this monetary system that enslaves all of us, right? So we can't even create what we want to create because everything takes money, that sort of thing. And so those were the instruments that were put into this realm to really make sure, particularly during this time, because a portal is open. They know that we're waking up during this time. It's a very special time in this planet where we can free ourselves. So they have planned for thousands of years of how, Babylonian times, beyond then perhaps, how can we lock these humans down so when that portal opens, they don't get to escape?
Yeah, because obviously, if we were a soul having a human experience, then before we incarnated down here, we would have been fully aware of the limitations of coming here.
Mm-hmm.
We would have been fully aware of any agenda that was on or present in this planet, and we came down that chute faster than we, anyone could have pushed us. Do you know what I mean? I mean, we were desperate for this experience, desperate. And then when we're here, because we forget the true nature of who we are, it's just we tend to see it with such different eyes, don't we?
Yes.
Which we're supposed to.
Yes. And then we got here, and many of us like to say we didn't read the small print in the contract when we volunteered. It's like, oh yeah, I'm a ninth dimensional being. I can go down there and take on that body and help humanity through this time. No problem. But we get the mind wipe like everyone else. We have the limitations of this physical body like everyone else. And so many of us have to reawaken. Now, again, if you talk to, Dolores or people like Mary Rodwell, and they talk about the new children coming in, they have higher connected DNA. And this is, by the way, why we have all these vaccines. They're trying to dumb these poor kids down the minute they come in. Newborns are getting like 37 vaccines or something because they know that they are star babies, and they're coming in with a more holistic brain, less of the left-right, and they're coming in with higher levels of DNA, and so they're real game changers. I'm an old Blu-ray indigo, so the Blu-rays kind of started incarnating in earnest, sort of in the 50s, but like my dad was also, I believe, a Blu-ray. So they go into the last century, but as we're getting closer to the shift, these new babies are coming in. So you have the Blu-rays and the indigos and the crystals and the rainbows and the dolphins and the diamonds. And as with these successive grouping, they're coming in with higher level DNA strands connected and knowing. I mean, these kids, a lot of times they're verbal at a year and a half, and they'll tell their parents, I'm here to help. I know what I'm doing. Just, stay out of my way and just help me grow up. And so that's why there's such an assault, because we're coming to the end of this reign of power of the dark ones, and a creator, source, whatever is stepping in saying, your time is done. We're shifting over. And during this time, they're trying to hit us with everything because they're desperately trying to hold on to their power.
So when we talk about there's people influenced by these lower energies, or influenced by what we're discussing here, which is the and just please interject that I'm going to get the words wrong here, but let's go back to the implants. Mm-hmm. We're saying the implants come from beings, energy. Well, I want to use the word mantis, reptilians, archons, greys. Where do they fit into dumbing us down?
Well, they all have their own agenda. And it's more than them. There's Nordics, and there's bunches of them. Some more humanoid. Um, they all have their own agenda, but they're all on the same side in a way, because they're all after the same thing, the dumbing down of humanity so that they can, do whatever their agenda is. So it would be said that the reptilians, for example, want to take over. They have a history of taking over planetary systems. And then when they're done with that, they move on, or if they get kicked off or whatever, they move on. The insectoids might operate differently. The grays, they're kind of more android type. They kind of work very closely with the reptilians. They might be, some people say they're trying to save their own species, right? That they've evolved to the point where there's sort of these android things. So they're trying to, take back time, right? Whether all of that is true, I can't say for sure. In other words, I don't know their specific agendas, but I do know they each have one. And I do know they all are kind of joined together and said, we're all on the same team, just like those of us of the light are all generally on the same team, even though we have different roles to play.
Right. So when in this interview we're talking about before that, the Rothschilds and people that are influenced by these lower vibrational energy, what? Just let's can we name that energy? Who's put it? So let's go back again. Who's putting these implants, these etheric implants in? What is this? What is this energy that wants to not allow us to rise to our greatest potential? What's caused us to be living that thing, that film, They Live.
Right. So again, maybe it goes all the way back to some sort of artificial intelligence that decided that was, that turned rogue, that was a destroyer intelligence, and they decided they wanted to come into Earth, which is sort of like the heart chakra of this solar system. And if you look at Earth, it's this beautiful little blue orb, if you can believe NASA, but if that's what we look like, I'm not necessarily sure of that. But we are the most alive, and we are of the heart. And the last war for humanity is to beat down the heart, because that holds the God frequency. And so they've, the chakra system, I'm kind of going off into tangents. There's nothing wrong with your chakra system. Your chakra system helps you be here in this body on this terrain. The problem you have is when the chakra system gets infested with implants. Okay, so these entities want to come in or the implants. They all have their own agenda. Maybe if you look at a hierarchical chart, put AI at the top, a crazy rogue AI, who then below all these other creational, lower astral creational, some of them demons, jinn, other ET races that have come in through wormholes or portals from other dimensional realms or other universes. They all sort of gravitated here to get a piece of this because we're so special. And that's the ironic thing, is we've been sort of made to seem like we're nothing, and yet we're so incredibly special and so powerful. And so any of that stuff can come in. I see about 100 different implants I've worked with over 700 people to teach them this so far. I see a range of about 100 different implants that people are pulling out of themselves. I just guide them, but they do the work themselves, which is so empowering, and so it makes them so much more sovereign than having to rely on someone. Just like if you can take care of your own body and eat well, isn't that more sovereign than having to go to a doctor all the time and get a little pill? So I believe in that. So, teach a man to fish. Now, not everybody's going to have 100 different things in them. But that's what I've kind of collated in all the notes that I've taken. And so people are seeing the same things over and over, and they're in various different categories. Generally you'll see two-footed entities of all kinds. You'll see mechanical creatures. You'll see organic type creatures. You'll see all kinds of weird goo, like Harold Kautzvella talks about. You will see AI technologies. So there's a very broad range of what you can see, and everybody's got some of it in them. It's just a matter of to what degree. And actually, I don't think I fully answered your question, and I know you wanted to cut in, but I'll go back to, well, why would they attack certain people? What causes that? Well, we talked about, one, threat of the system, right? Second thing would be your DNA, your lineage. So lineages play a big role here. We hear about the Rh negative bloodlines and so on. So certain people, blonde haired, blue eyed, certain people or red haired, blue eyed, are targeted more than others. Okay, so that's just a fact. And again, maybe that's because those entities want that bloodline, the DNA that's in that for their own experiments. I'm just going through some of my notes here because this is actually a question I haven't asked myself for a while. Are you an in-souled being? Okay, so we talk about, people call them non-player characters. I don't like that word. What I prefer to say is, are you in-souled and fully embodied, or are you not? In other words, are you kind of a walking empty vessel? There isn't much in your operating system. Either your soul's been fully popped out, or you have an entity working you so hard that you aren't really driving your vehicle, or are you fully an in-souled being where you're driving the bus? This is your container, you're fully driving it. So again, everything's along a spectrum. So when we talk about background people, I don't really like that. I like to say they're just non-in-souled people. They're empty suits walking around. Maybe they were once filled with soul. I don't know, but they're not filled with soul now. And we can see it. You can see it through the eyes, because people that have soul have sparkly, deep eyes. And when you look deeply into their eyes, there's like universes in there. And then you can see the people that have sort of these weird dead eyes, right? They're just kind of blank. And we're seeing a lot of that in Hollywood, right? And then we talk about cloning and all these different things that the military working with the ETs are doing. So they know how to clone perfectly now. You can't recognize a clone unless you're up close, okay? Or a synthetic robotoids. So that is already in play here. It's been in play for a very long time. And so when they introduce us to a little robot, what was that lady's name that came out, that female robot about a year or two ago? And they were showing her all over the place.
Oh, yeah, it's a movie, wasn't it?
Well, no, this is the one where she's up on stage and she started answering.
Oh.
Yeah, but I can't think of her name. But anyway.
We'll play a clip.
Yeah, but the point is, they've already been doing perfect cloning for a very, very long time, perhaps hundreds of years. And so they want us to believe that we're just getting into the robot race. It's not true. Also, if you are completely at peace with yourself, if you have a high vibration, if you're spiritually, mentally embodied, you will find that you have less interference. Shadow work is a big one. Most of us have been born into dysfunctional families of some kind, emotional, physical, mental abuse. It's just the realm that we're in now. And it was handed down to our parents, and it was handed down from their parents. And so the shadow work is really going inside and finding out what is the unhealed parts of you that can be triggered into anger, depression, fear. So, because remember, if you don't deal with your shadow side and you don't heal that, and you don't get to your place of equanimity and observation, kind of the middle path, right? We don't want to be too much to the left. We don't want to be too much to the right. We don't want to be in the new cage. I'm spiritual. I'm not new age. The new cage is just, this is the extreme of it, but sit around and meditate and sing kumbaya and the world will be fine. You don't really have to do anything other than raise your vibration and everything will be fine. And to some degree, that is true because our vibrational changes do change things. The other side of that would be you've got to be out there, angry and a warrior, and you've got to be fighting. So that's the other side of that energy. We want to find the middle ground. We want to be able to stay kind of in the observer mode, like a Christed figure, like a Buddha figure, where nothing really, we see it. We do have feelings. We're not, we're still human, but we're not getting so caught up in it that we're making ourselves suicidal, deeply depressed. We can't get out of bed, because that's when all of these implants and entities come in to feed. And that's when they lock down the person even more. So the more that you can stay in higher vibration, it absolutely will help you. But again, I would say you still have to get out anything that's in you to start. Then you've got a nice clean sheet of paper. And now you can do things like, eat more healthy, get out in nature, get rid of toxic friends, simplify your life so your left brain isn't overloaded all the time with, oh my God, I got so many things to do, I can't think straight. You know, you'll be able to step more into your sovereignty and your own power. Your gifts will start to open up more, particularly again after you get the implants out, because the implants act like they clamp down on you. They shut you down. And so when you peel them off, it's like getting a leech off your body. All of a sudden your blood can flow the way it should flow. So you want to do all of those things to make sure that you're overcoming this to the best of your ability.
Yeah, I mean, and again, this is a service, or this is some of the stuff that you offer as well, so people can get in contact with you. How many implants have you removed, again, would you say?
Well, the broad categories are probably up to about 100. Every person is different. I've had sessions where I'm doing really deep work now with people. My average session now is running with a tutorial, because I give them a tutorial up front so they fully understand how to feel and see and get these implants out. The average session is running about 6 hours currently. Okay, now some run less if they've already been pulling out some of their own implants, because I do get people that have, you know, dabbled with that themselves, or they may have gone to another implant remover and had it done for them, but they finally got to the place where they're like, I don't want to keep running to someone else, I want to learn. And by the way, that might be a good first step for some people. Go to someone who'll peel them off so you at least get an idea of what it should feel like. But what I would argue is they're usually not, they're only doing some surface cleaning. The person that's going to do the best cleaning is you, because you're going to feel it, see it yourself, and be able to get it out. Nobody's going to do it better than you. My longest session ran 17 hours. I had to break it up over 3 days. She had layer over layer over layer over layer of stuff, and we just had to keep peeling it away. And she had a variety of circumstances that made her highly targeted. But it's not always predictable for me. I had a housewife in the Midwest with 2 children. She wasn't on her mission. Yes, she was awake. She was just starting to study stuff. Oh my gosh. She had a ton of implants on her. And then I've done radio show hosts that I would have thought had way more, not have that much. So I really, I do a pre-assessment before I take each client, just to try to get a gauge of what we're going to be up against. But I really can't fully predict it until we get into a session, because again, it can have to do with your bloodline, your DNA, right? Your past lives. What did you bring in from a past life? What is your mission in this life? Have you done any shadow work? Are you on drugs and alcohol? Are you smoking cigarettes? Are you eating crappy food, junk food in the supermarket? All of those things can contribute to a lot of stuff being on you. So when you look at my household, I walk my talk. I don't have a TV. I don't have a stereo system. I don't listen to radio in the car. All of those things transmit frequencies and subliminal programming that can dumb you down and lower your vibration. I'm a vegetarian vegan. I basically don't smoke. I don't drink alcohol. I figure I take this very seriously. If I'm going to do this work, I want to make sure that I'm keeping my body as healthy as I can do it for my clients and also for myself. I'm 60 years old. I feel better now than I did in my 20s, Kevin. I have more stamina. I'm more clear-headed. And it sort of kind of stops the aging process. I live in a very sunny climate. I'm out in the sun all the time. I sun gaze. I do all these things that I know are actually helping me. And I think it's made me a better person.
Yeah, well, absolutely. You don't look 60. Oh my God. You look great. And yeah, you've mentioned a few. There's many different layers of addiction, isn't there? Many different types of that you probably come across. That again, that's another show in its own right. Kind of moving this forward as well, and thank you for sharing everything you've shared there. Obviously you've done a lot of your own inner work as well, right? In this process.
I've been doing shadow work since I was a child. I was
Right.
born into a very dysfunctional family, and I am the oldest of all of the families. So my parents were both youngest, and then I have siblings. So I was awake as a child, so I came in with a very precocious, very mature attitude because I knew I was here up until age 5,
Yeah,
to do.
absolutely.
So
Now,
yeah, I have been doing the shadow work. I do it every day still. I mean,
well, that's what I wanted to get to. Yeah,
oh
you're
my God,
still
it's a
doing it.
never-ending process.
Well, let me just say this. Obviously, when people first come into this field nowadays, rather than the sort of spiritual stuff, they get into the conspiracy. I was going to say consciousness stuff. No, they get into the conspiracy stuff. But there's nothing wrong with that neither. It led me to my path of spirituality. I was and still am a little bit of a fan of Alex Jones. I'm more of right now. It's more of like, look what he was able to achieve. I didn't always appreciate and go along with the fear-based stuff that he did. I wasn't
And all the
into that.
yelling.
And all the yelling, yeah, a lot of the fear, but a lot of women hated that,
Yeah.
and the fear-based stuff was not good. And people will say, yeah, but it was, the cabal was taking him down. And no, he took himself down.
Mm-hmm.
He deplatformed himself by going against the rules. Do you know what I mean?
Well, we could get off on this. I think he was an agent from day one. I still do. And they just took him out of commission because, they own both sides of the paradigm. And so, there's good.
Well, this is what I want to get to.
Yeah.
What about the spiritual side? What about the people that are, influencing other people in our field? The David Wilcox, the Kerry Cassidys,
Corey Goods,
many other people. Corey Goods. There's so many other
right.
people I kind of want to mention, but I'm going, and they're all playing a part. They're all playing the part that they're supposed to play, and that's called for others to learn discernment from.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for
right.
saying that. That is my number one mantra right now. We have to learn discernment. Now, yeah, they might be playing a role. And again, I'm not going to name names, and I have been messed with by some of those people. So I'm definitely not going to name names. But so I'm going to leave the names out of it, but let's just take the genre that you just described. And let's assume that they're playing, they're an agent or they're trying to misinform. The 80-20 rule will give you 80% truth, but will take you, 20% down the wrong way. You can still learn from those people. I watch everything. I learn from everyone. And once you get the discernment meter going, which, by the way, when you get your body clear, when you start treating it the right way and you treat it as this beautiful vessel that we should have, your discernment will build, particularly when you get the implants out too, when they stop giving you the little misinformation in your thoughts. I can see through it now pretty clear as day. I'm not always 100%, but within a very short period of time, I can see through it. But what I would say to people is we can learn from all of it. And sometimes the best way to learn is to go down the wrong path and, suffer some sort of disappointment or problem, right? And then, because you pay attention then. You really pay attention. You say, I don't ever want to do that again. What do I have to do this differently? And that, for example, is me at conferences. I went to one of the biggest conferences in the world out in LA right after I woke up, and I brought back a host of attachments. And a lot of these speakers were there, and I just said, never again, not doing that again, learn my lesson. But I was glad I did it. I'm glad I experienced that. So, yeah, so I would say, where is the truth here? Number one, is there one single truth when it comes to a lot of this information? I do believe in certain absolute truths, universal truths, but everybody's having a different experience. So they've got to find their truth, and they've got to figure out their discernment. Even as people listen to me on the show, I've gotten by the way, if they watch Leak Project, I got so trolled out on his videos. Like, I don't know where the trolls came from, but they really everything from I'm batshit crazy to I'm out for the money, even though I charge way less than people that do this for an hour. Anyway, the bottom line is that I'm just trying to educate people with what I know. And if it resonates, great, then you're meant to hear it and it's right for you. And if it doesn't resonate, you don't have to attack me or write a bad note. Just move on and go find someone who resonates for you. I don't know why we have to be fighting. Actually I do. That's exactly what the entities want and the implants want. They want us all at odds. Take that young girl who's out right now, Greta. She's all over Facebook, Greta Thunberg or whatever. By the way, an agent from day one, totally manipulated. But people are arguing. They're going from, no, my God, she's so amazing, she's teaching us about global warming, to, oh my God, she's demonic. And so, it's the political system, everything is set up in this duality for us to fight with each other. So where I've come in my journey is to say, take what resonates and leave the rest.
Yes.
And if everything I've said on this video sounds like BS to you, then take what resonates and
well, I mean, I'm having first-hand experience with with someone like Kerry Cassidy right now, which I'll just mention names, right? Because I just like to. Right?
Well,
and
okay. I'm just saying, I'm neutral.
No,
I'm Switzerland.
I'm not saying that they're not a human being. I'm not saying anything like that. I'm saying that they've been heavily taken over by something that does not have their best interest at heart. And when you don't want to look at the evidence, and when you don't want to see when your vision is so skewed in some ways, and you realize it's not just her, there's many others in our field which are so-called leaders, used to be leaders in this field.
Yeah.
The only leader that you really need is yourself, to be quite honest with you. That's where all answers lie within. All answers lie within.
Yes.
And if you go with love, most times it will take you down the right path. And if it takes you down a path that doesn't seem so loving, well, maybe that's the experience you needed. Do you know what I mean? Maybe sometimes, what seems... There are no wrong or rights. I know that from my own experiences, that there are just experiences, if that makes sense.
Well, and Kevin, when I first started out, and I woke up to because I can see clearly who's infiltrated and who isn't. I can walk through Walmart and see who's human, who's a clone. I can see it clear as day. I tried to save people. I tried to warn people. And do you know the backlash I got? Because when someone has their belief in someone, you're not going to change that. You have to let them get to a place where they see it for themselves. So now, again, I stay in a more neutral stance, and I say, if that's the path you need to go down, then go down it. You may get burnt. You may even come back and say, oh my gosh, you people were right. Oh, well, it's not about being right. It's like the parent who's trying to warn the teenager. They've lived through this before. They know what they're talking about, but they've got to let that teenager figure it out for themselves. And the truth is, when people first wake up, they are searching for answers. This is exactly why the New Age and the military have put so many agents with the big flashy websites and all, and the millions of followers or the thousands of people in their Facebook chat rooms. Why? Because they know that's where the newly awakened are going to gravitate to first, because they're going to figure, oh, look at that guy's website. He must be somebody. I'll go listen to him. And they may find out later, oh, that person was compromised. And I found that out later, or I had an experience. And so that's exactly why they put these people in place. The ones that are frankly doing a lot of the great work you've never heard of, or they don't go on camera and they stay behind the scenes. Why? Because we're getting targeted 6 ways to Sunday.
Well, let's just go back to what you said when we first started this interview. You said that this is one of your first interviews that you've done with the camera. Because
this is the first one I've done with the camera.
The first one, okay, yeah, the first one. Thank you. I'm honored.
Don't be.
No, I am.
And really, don't be honored. I just want to say on that, because the energy changed for me. I literally went through a massive upgrade in the last 2 weeks, and I realized a lot of the fear I don't have to fear anymore. So I said, I'm coming out. I'm not going to hide anymore. But anyway, go ahead.
No, wonderful. But you have been worried before because you felt like you were targeted as well.
Oh, I've not even felt like it. I've been gang stalked. I've had guys, monitoring my house. I got hit with frequency from the military, helicopters flying over my house where they're, basically shake up your brain. I've had it all. I've had reptilians in the home. I've not had any of that, thankfully, for the last year. But prior to that, yeah. I was scared to death. They sacrificed a white dove in front of my home. They slit its throat. And the white dove represents God, purity. And that was and it was just one, we're going to kill you. And you know what I did? I said, I'm not having it, because I researched a lot about gang stalking, and I realized they're another parasite. And At the end of the day, if you give them your power and your fear, that's what they want. And I said, no, I'm not doing that. I was followed by men in black. They are true creations. They're here. They used to follow me to the supermarket in big government Suburbans right after I woke up. And I thought, what the heck? Who am I? Like, why are you bothering me? I don't even know what's going on. I got some guy show up, just like Laura Eisenhower talks about, started telling me about the secret space program at Mars. He called, I thought I was recruiting him for a search because I was still winding down my practice. And he started talking about the space shuttle mission and how those guys didn't really die, that they're on Mars. And he wanted to meet me for coffee. And I'm like, no, I'm not meeting you. I'm sorry. I just had visions of being whisked away in a white van, never to be seen again, or shipped off to Mars. So I've had all kinds of things. And this is what's happened and again, I'm finally talking about it. But this is what happened to the real people,
I mean, I don't know why. I do find it hard to believe, just my own take, that there is anything on any of these planets out there, in the reality that we're sharing right now. I mean, I would find it difficult to believe that there was any, bases on Mars and anything like that, or anything in this realm. I mean, maybe if I was from another dimension and dimensionally shifting or something, maybe there's something there, right? But I do go on the science of the day, and people like Laura Eisenhower who have had these so-called people, wanting to recruit her. I'm very skeptical about that, about a lot of things.
Well,
right
and
now.
I'm not going to say I believe in all of that either, because I really believe we're in a very special realm here. And I don't know what's outside that realm, if anything's outside that realm. So I hear the stories, but I do, just as sort of a little corroboration, this guy did show up and start talking about that. Now, I never learned anything more about it. I didn't want to. And it was interesting. It was right after I discovered Laura, because when I first woke up in 2010, there were only a few big players. Wilcock was out there, Eisenhower was out there, Cassidy was out there. There were not the plethora of people out there like there are today. So, you would hang on their every word because there wasn't that much. But again, I'm with you, Kevin. I don't know that I really know if anything's on Mars or the moon or any of it.
Even with the channeling docu-series that I'm putting out right now, right? I'm still, discerning about it. There's not a day that don't go by when I put in each docu-series out, because I've got over 90 docu-series on channeling going out, that I don't, feel some discernment that I didn't feel at the time when I filmed it, right? But I mean, my take on that is that we all have a higher self, and it's just a way to connect to your higher self. For me, channeling is, regardless of what people can say about it, it's just another way of connecting to that greater part of yourself. Not for everyone. Some people channel, all sorts of different things, but I know I'm doing this body of work, but I am a lot more discerning than when I first filmed that docu-series, and I'm a lot more discerning since I have started in post-production for the documentary, which is going against Captain Mark Richards, which is Kerry Cassidy's top whistleblower. And when you go and do these things on foot and go see the real truth, it's different. And but I do believe that we're a soul having a human experience, that we're more than our body. I know that for sure. I know we go somewhere else, but I want people to I guess I'm a bit more about discernment nowadays.
Good. And if you allow me to be candid on channeling for a moment. So there's a difference between getting a download, getting information where you're fully awake and your eyes are open, right? And to me, those are downloads. That's called claircognizance, clear knowing. And to me, that is connected to your higher self and source. And that's what I do. Then there's the channeling where people bring beings through them, like Bashar, right? And the only thing I'll say about that, because I've seen it in my sessions, a reptilian can shapeshift into Jesus. He can shapeshift into your dead grandmother. All of these implants can shapeshift, and they can manipulate your vibration. So people say, yeah, but it felt so good in my body. They can manipulate that too. So we have to be really careful. Is that person really channeling who they think they are? And also, is the information a 20-80 rule? Maybe 80% of it is truth to kind of capture the audience, but then there's 20% disinformation. And how would we ever know? Right. So I would
how much is the disinformation telling you to jump off a bridge, or how much is the disinformation telling you, to grab that next drink, or to smoke that last cigarette, or to stab that person? Do you know what I mean? It's like, is that 20% of disinformation even any good, or
Well,
was it just nonsense, or?
that would be within the individual, right? They could tell you, but even if they were channeling information for humanity, for example, and they say, and I'm just making this up right now, but we're the council, and we're watching what you're doing, and you're doing a really good job. Keep doing it. You are freeing humanity. Well, if you listen to some of these, and I haven't listened to all your videos at all, and this is not a critique on what you're doing. I think it's beautiful what you're doing, because even if you wake up at some point at doing this and saying, I'm not sure I even believe in channeling anymore, you would take everybody through that journey with you, and that is a good thing. But the truth of the matter is that, if you listen to some of these for years and years the way I have, you're not getting really the meat on the bones. Like, that old hamburger, where's the meat? Like, they just say kind of the same sort of wishy-washy, you're doing a good job, keep it up. I want to hear, like, I think Barbara Marciniak has brought through some really interesting information. And again, I'm not going to say I believe everything just because of my experience with implants, but, at least there's some really concrete, more detailed information. That's what I look for in channeling. Versus some of these people that are just kind of bringing through this very nebulous stuff.
Sure. I think Barbara Marciniak, I think she's still actually doing events. I'm in the Pittsburgh area, I believe she is.
Yeah, I think she's still active too. And I haven't listened to all of her stuff, just some of it.
Well, she's gone a lot more underground. I know she went quite negative on some of the stuff she was doing, right? But I wouldn't mind getting her to be part of the channel in docu-series. I know she'll probably say no, but now I'm in the US, it's like, she would be interesting. I know, because was it Bringers of the Dawn she did as well? That, but yeah, famous kind of book. Yeah, it's like any of this stuff. It's what resonates and what doesn't. As long as it's empowering and it's, it's a bit like a life coach. It's trying to get you to be the best you can be, right?
Yes.
Or better. Then I think that's useful as well. But of course, like any field, there are frauds in the channeling community. I'll say it, and I'll keep saying it to the day I die.
And there are frauds in the implant community, I'll tell you as well. Okay, I know many of them, and some of them are hosted badly. So
really?
Yes. And so we have to be, just because
discerning.
Shoemaker's children. Are you walking your talk?
Well, let's wrap this back up then. Back to the solution. I know we've kind of been touching the solution throughout some of this stuff. I'll let you end this on what is the solution to all this.
Okay, so if I were to rattle off some of the things that people can do every single day, and I'm not saying this is easy, it's going to maybe be baby steps, but do realize that implants are a thing, and that you got to get them out. Now, whether you choose to figure it out on your own, whether you choose to go to someone to do it for you, or whether you choose to come to me and learn how to do it, get them out. Very much like gut parasites, right? If we're living with liver flukes and ropeworms, there's no way we're feeling good and getting all our nutrition. As above, so below. So look at it that way. These are nothing more than overgrown parasites. And by the way, do not be afraid of them. They are way more afraid of us once we know how to get rid of them, because we go up into the etheric realm to get rid of them. They will cower, cloak, hide, run, try to negotiate for their freedom. They are scared to death of us. Once we get up there, they can only puppet us because we don't know they're there. Step into your sovereignty. Sovereignty is a big word, but what it means is start taking responsibility. Stop, looking for the answers to everything in your life outside of you, and start taking some quiet time in nature, meditate, go within, ask your own self these questions, and then wait for the answer to emerge. And also, we've been trained in the Western society in particular, we're reliant on the money, we're reliant on the government, we're reliant on our pension, we're reliant on food stamps, we're reliant on them. So they've entrained us to be looking outside. Well, who's going to help me? Who's going to fix this? Bring it back inside. You're meant to fix this yourself. So what are some more things you can do? Keep your body vessel clear. Eat the right foods. Realize what this technology is doing to us. Technology is a portal for these entities to come through. So if you're getting that new black screen TV, look up scrying from the 1800s, where they used to sit in front of mirrors with a lit candle and call in demons. These things can literally let stuff into your children's minds. And it's got subliminal programming flicker rate programming that your unconscious doesn't even know it's absorbing. So try to stay off technology as much as possible. Get into nature. Nature is going to teach you the organic realm. You'll start to feel resonance. I can talk to a tree, or I can talk to a plant or an animal. You'll start to feel that resonance when you disconnect from all of this inorganic realm and you get into the organic realm. That is what we're made to do, and it'll start to open up channels. Simplify your life. When we've got 50 million things flying at us, I live in a teeny tiny little house, 1,000 square feet, and I have decluttered that thing like you can't believe. So I've got an office, I've got my bedroom, I've got a tiny little living room. I did that partly by having to, because when I left my big corporate job, I don't make anywhere near the money I used to. But partly I did it because I want this. I didn't need the bigger house. I didn't need all this stuff. It actually cluttered up my mind, and it made me start to feel frenetic and anxious, because when you walk into a room and there's a million different things, your mind takes that in and you're thinking, I got to dust that. Oh, I got to fix that. Oh, I got to throw that out. Get your life simple. And that's why you're seeing so many of these young people go toward tiny home living, or, going out and living in communal farms, because they understand what the formula is. Get enough sleep. I cannot say that enough. We are being programmed to never sleep. You need to sleep. It's the only way your body regenerates. And so get your good sleep. Narrow your focus in how much you take in from the world. I can't keep watching these negative videos. I'm in a different space right now. I already know about all the conspiracy theories. Been there, done that. I'm not going to really be watching much of that anymore. I want to watch videos on how do I raise my vibration? How do I manifest? How do I have all the things that I want? How do I make sure I go and phase into the new world so I'm not stuck in this one, in the 3D world, the transhumanism world? And then lastly, I would say get rid of, let me reword that. Evaluate the people in your life. If you have toxic energy vampires in your life, they have to go. They're going to keep dragging you down day in and day out. If you're in a job where your boss is beating up on you every single day, you've got to get brave and say, I got to go do something else. If you've got a mother, as much as you loved her, she's a narcissistic, toxic person, you've got to, narrow the focus of how much time you spend with her, because every time you're going to be around her, she's going to pull you down. Imagine that these parasites see you climbing the ladder. You're getting healthier, you're happier, your vibration is, Cameron Day calls them the ankle biters, and I love that term. They're grabbing your ankle trying to pull you down, and they will set you up in your life with all of these things to get you distracted, frenetic, upset, angry. It's all so they can come in and control you more. So part of sovereignty is you take charge of your vessel. You decide what comes in and out of your life. Hope that helps.
Absolutely, it does. I just want to say, Lynn, just thank you so much for coming on today. I know our paths are going to cross again at some point. I know they are. I just really appreciate the information that you put out, and thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Kevin, for number one, being my date for coming on video. I felt really safe with you, and I felt safe with this show. And so I want to thank you for allowing me to come on the show and do this with you. I appreciate it very much.